Injury is something in motor racing that unfortunately it is part of most teams' season at some point in time. Could be a crew member, could be a driver. It's going to happen. If not to every team, we know some teams seem to get hit by that injury bug. The Vasser Sullivan Lexus team for sure has qualified in that category here in 2025. Ben Barnicoat, they're amazing championship winning drivers, one of their true leaders among the drivers here, had an injury. It took him out for a couple of months. We're going to hear from Ben at the very end and go a little bit in depth with him, but we wanted to start out talking with team co-owner, team co-founder James Sully Sullivan, along with Jimmy Vasser. But we could talk to Sully about how do you deal with this from the team side, because you go into a year with big plans, everything written down, everything scripted, and then you find out that one of your lead drivers is going to be out not just for one race, but for multiple months. How does a team react to that here in IMSA in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship? Let's hear from what Sully has to say.
For us, we have something here at Vasser Sullivan. It's dear to us, and we never react, we respond. That is the line at Vasser Sullivan. So when there's adversity, when tragedy strikes, we don't react, we respond. And every team member here knows that, from Vasser and I down. And what that means is that there is a premeditated plan that is agreed on by our senior leadership team, put in place by Jimmy and I and TRD, for that when tragedy strikes or when you're hit with adversity, what is it you're going to do? Well, that plan is there and it's sitting on the cabinet, premeditated, pre-digested, ready to go. That's a really important part of this whole deal, as Vasser Sullivan has really morphed from being a team that competes to a championship organization. That is one of the biggest pieces, I think, that when I look back on the last 5 or 6 years here, that has really been the nucleus of it, is that you have a plan and then you start to engage on that plan. So people may or may not know this, but 2025 for Vasser Sullivan has been nothing but a year of adversity and injuries. Driver injuries, crew injuries. The Rolex 24, we were bringing in Esteban Masson, and we never really had a chance to even formally announce it. We had a hell of a test with him in November. He had a testing incident, so before we even got started, we were behind the 8 ball on what is the only large race in this country that we've yet to win. And we staffed up and we put a great driver lineup in place to do that. And already out of the gate, we're hit with adversity. So we drafted in Townsend Bell, our fine friend, who we call it the Off the Couch Tour. Unlike when Jimmy and I competed in IndyCar, which is one driver, one car, we have got 7 contracted drivers at Vasser Sullivan Lexus across 2 RCF GT3s, right? So the dynamic itself, when you're looking to replace a driver, is already much more dynamic than you're trying to find one guy. When you put together a driver roster, who's qualifying, who's your mid-stint, who's your closer? So in that, who is it that you're trying to replace? Yes, you're going after raw pace or some aggregate talent, but it has to fit into, let's call it, the ecosystem of the driver lineup and the chemistry that's being built, right? So in the case of the Rolex 24, Townsend did a hell of a job between the booth and the race car, and I think some people underestimate how hard that is. When we look at a situation like replacing Ben Barnicoat, you begin to put a circle around when is a guy like that who is very hard to replace, right? A top level factory platinum pro who is a major contributor to our first championship with Lexus, and now he's sidelined. How do you do that? Well, you go to your playbook. What's the earliest we think a guy like that's going to be back? And then you work backwards, right?
And you knew this was not going to be a quick one.
No. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we had a little bit of experience with this in Hawksworth. So around Vasser Sullivan, we understand injuries such as Ben's and such as Jack's. And there's different things that come into play, because it's not just, is he suitable and is he ready to race a race car? You have to take it to what is the absolute worst possible case that could happen to that driver in an event? What would be the injury of that? And is he healed enough to withstand it? That's kind of the litmus test that you have to apply, and that's what the doctors apply in a case like Ben's or like Jack's, right? You even take it to the point of, it's not a 1-driver team, it's a 7-driver team, which means you have a lot of driver changes. Can a guy who's injured his back jump off of a wall and then get around the back corner of a race car and into a cockpit and handle a driver change? So it's much more than just, can he take a hit and can he drive a race car? But Barnicoat, we knew, was not going to be a short one. Sebring we had covered before Ben's injury. In the back of our minds, on that contingency plan that I just talked to you about, we know who that guy is, and we had to use him, right? Jose Maria Lopez, we had to use him, right? He knew the car, he knew the track from his hypercar days. Detroit we had covered, Long Beach we had covered. Laguna was gonna be a real interesting one, and we knew that right away. Sometimes in a case of a substitute driver, you can also use it as an opportunity to evaluate talent for the future. And in the case of Marvin Kirchhoffer, who we brought in for Laguna, he whipped our ass at the Rolex this year. He won it. So you start there, you go, okay, the guy won the Rolex and he may or may not be available. And then you go, well, what did he do at Laguna last year? Well, he whipped our ass again. He finished P2. So you say, well, that's the only race onwards that we didn't have a suitable replacement for. So you tap him, and it worked out, and it gives us as an organization an opportunity to evaluate future talent, not just how good a guy like that is, but how does he fit into, like I said, this crazy circus that has become, you know, a factory race team like Vasser Sullivan. Kid did a hell of a job, but the plan, to me, if you go back to it, to answer your question, how do you do it? You have the premeditated plan, and then you rely on the plan. It gets everybody a lot calmer. You know, when you have a process like that, the pressure kind of gets relieved off your guys and your girls because the plan's there. You go and you execute on it. You hear a lot of talk these days about simulator this, driver simulators, CFD simulators. We're all coming to an event trying to simulate as much as possible to remove as many variables as possible, right? Well, the simulator is also an unsung hero of preparing a substitute driver for an event like a Sebring, or in Marvin's case, a Laguna, right? Because what you don't want is a driver that doesn't understand the basic functionality of the cockpit, the layout, in-come torque sensors, and power management. Brave new world there. Different manufacturers and cars deal with that in different ways. Is that driver up to speed on how we do that? In comes the simulator, that helps a lot, right? So having a proper sim is a super valuable tool in preparing a substitute driver, like a Kirchhoffer, let's call it, or a Lopez. And then beyond that, obviously in IMSA WeatherTech, you've got silver drivers and you've got gold and platinum drivers. So in the back of our minds on that plan, again, are you replacing a silver guy? Are you replacing a experienced seasoned vet and pro? We spend at least 2 or 3 times during the year bringing non-contracted silver drivers into our sim, giving them a look, but also in the back of our minds preparing them for, if you have a guy like that go down, that he understands the car, he understands the functionality of it, the systems and what have you, and he's ready to go if we got a call on him.
So the physical injury is the one that keeps a driver out of the car, but there could be lingering effects that aren't of the physical, of the muscle, of the bone, of the tendon, but more of the mental variety. Again, if you're out 1 or 2 races, happens all the time. Multiple months, that could be something where a driver, going from that old saying, the best ability is availability. If you're not available, you might not have a job. You might have it temporarily, but will the team start looking elsewhere in reaction to that injury that kept you out for so long? This is a part that Sully says really might not be the part that folks truly understand is a massive part of this recovery process.
Don't think for a second that, for instance, when Marvin Kirchhoffer, who's in our car, who is not a contracted full season driver, was on that track at that time, that Ben wasn't watching every single lap and every single stint to see how that was playing out. Sure, were we evaluating him? Yes, but in the instance of Ben, you got to wrap your arms around him. You know, we've got a future planned with Ben, and you reinforce that to him. We make him, one, we tell him, and then 2, you got to make him feel it, right? That you do have a home here. And in an instance of a guy like Ben, what makes him such a good pro is not just what he did in the cockpit, but he is in the sim, he's out of the car, he's in the race shop, he's attending events, his presence is here, right? And that's a big part of helping him kind of minimize that doubt of, do I still have a home here? Yes, the answer is yes, we believe in you, we got you. And then 2, how am I gonna be when I get back in the race car? How am I gonna measure up? This is a brutal sport, but there is a such thing as grace because we're human beings, we're not robots. And I think that's something that we're learning that process as we go. We dealt with it a bit with Jack, so we learned from that. But with Ben, those things are a real thing. And I think that if you're gonna ask a guy like Ben to step into a car and perform when he's well, a lot of that comes from his confidence and his security in that seat. And we've done our damnedest to make him feel that way. But a lot of these race car drivers, especially a factory pilot, they've got a lot of responsibilities outside of the race car. So while he was injured, he was still extremely busy with us and with Lexus, right, and with TRD. So the human element is maybe an unforeseen and unspoken piece of this, but I would say perhaps it might even be one of the most critical.
So now let's talk to our friend Ben Barnicoat, having to come back, learn more about his mountain biking injury and what this process was like for him, having to recover physically, mentally as well, stay connected with the team. The team side looks after so much of this, but also the driver has to make sure they're doing everything possible, not just to get well physically, but also mentally, and maintain those crucial bonds that really do make a team like Vasser Sullivan special.
So it was, the week before Sebring. I got back to Charlotte. I'm on my usual routine, getting ready for the race. We always do our simulate sessions the Friday of the week prior to the race. So I go, great sim session, feeling ready to go. But I was actually a little under the weather, just like a little cold and flu kind of deal. And usually we always work out at the Turk Performance Center in North Carolina. But golden rule is if you're a bit sick, you don't want to be there, right? And get all the other guys sick, because we're all driving, we're all competing, everyone wants to be on their top levels. Over the weekend, I was like, okay, I've got a mountain bike. It's something that I've got into quite a lot since spending a lot of time in North Carolina. And I was like, decided, hey, I'm going to go try some new trails. I went out on the Saturday at my usual spot, was all good. Sunday, tried somewhere new. I wanted to be out for 2 hours, like, hey, double stint. And I had like 10 minutes left to go on my ride. Was just coming on the downhill section. It split left and right. And I went left, and turned out to be a far bigger jump than my capability. And obviously I had a pretty nasty fall, and initially I just thought it was kind of like cosmetic, and it was funny that Andrea, our PR rep on the team, she told me that I had a lot of media stuff to do that week, so I'm like, I'm on the floor, pretty banged up, like lost my breath, and my face was, I had a bit of blood on my face. I was like, oh, how bad is it? So I get my phone out, take a selfie, and I'm covered in a bit of blood. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll be fine. I'll like get some makeup and I'll be fine for Sebring. So anyway, I get myself back up on the bike, and my neck's a little stiff. Get out of the forest, and yeah, I got home and got a little sore, and sure enough, took myself to A&E, and it was ER room as you guys call it, and found out it was a bit worse than I expected. And yeah, missing multiple months was really bad, and especially when at first I'd managed on my own steam. Mentally, I was like, I'm going to Sebring, I'm going to be there. Like say, as a driver, you know that you can't really miss a race because the world keeps going without you. It's not like the whole team stops.
And the team with great success at Sebring,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
This is a huge one to follow up.
Yeah, we're coming in as like defending winners, right? So in my head, I was like, I'm going to Sebring, and then until I found out that I was pretty badly banged up, and yeah, had a few months out. Well, here we are, the Glen. Really excited to be back.
Tell us about the rehab and recovery part, you getting into the gym. Of course, you'd want to attack things right away, but there is some physical repair and recovery time. Yeah. The worst thing you can do to a race car driver who's used to going 1,000,000 miles an hour is to say, be still, be steady. Some folks might love the idea of having to be at a standstill for months, but you all are not bred that way.
No, it was really hard. Like no other way to say it other than it was brutal. Like you said, this year I've been competing not only in IMSA but also the World Endurance Championship. So you're just traveling place to place, track to track, on the go, boom, 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 and then suddenly it's like stop. And actually the first couple of weeks weren't too bad because I was in a pretty bad state that, it was like I was only able to walk a little bit and wasn't able to do much. But then you kind of get to that like 4-week window and you're like, yeah, I'm starting to feel good. But then, you've still got such a long way to go to be fully recovered. And the routine for me has been, I've been doing physiotherapy like 3 days a week with Tammy, my physio's come here with me to my first race back. So that's 3 days a week, and then the other 5 days a week training every day. So about 6 weeks in, that went from training like physio once a day and training once a day to physio and then training twice a day, really, really pushing myself to get back ready. And, I feel like, me personally, I probably think I could have been back at Detroit, but obviously, as you said, you've got to make sure you're 100% when you come back from these things. The Glen was the one that worked out right for timing.
So we've spoken about the physical side of this, Ben. This team never wants to let you go, but ultimately your availability to provide your services is that ultimate value. What goes through your mind? You have to manage that while you're away for such a distance of, what if someone shows up to substitute and they like them more?
Like you say, when it goes from being 1 or 2 races into the 3, 4 that it was, you then do start to think like, kind of how's this going to be? And you know, here I am talking to you now, but I still feel like I've got a big step in my return to go. Like, yeah, I've managed to get myself in top shape and fully fit, ready to drive a car, but this won't be behind me until I'm back on the top step of the podium in my mind.
Watch us this season on NBC and Peacock. Be sure to subscribe to IMSA on YouTube and enjoy our brand new IMSA Endurance Hour podcast. And if you're interested in digital activation in motorsports, visit IMSA.com/partnership.